I'd like to welcome everyone to this session with Nafis, addressing coaching people resisting change. And I think this has resonated with quite a lot of you, and I've certainly got some interest in this session myself. Just briefly, Nafis can probably say a couple of words about his background, but yeah, he got actively involved with the Sydney Scrum Music Group years back when he moved to Sydney, and has been really deep into the coaching, especially ORSC, I guess, the whole ORSC program that I looked at and went, wow, people must be dedicated to do all of that. Nafis has done that. Yeah, and I think he's got a lot to share around a lot of those systems coaching techniques, including edge theory, including what we're going to look at today. So I think without any further ado, over to you, Nafis, and a round of applause for Nafis sharing this with us this evening.
Thank you, Ron, and welcome everyone. I will share my screen and let me know when you can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So as Derek was mentioning, the next hour and so that we're going to spend, we're dividing it into three different sections. There is the actual workshop where we will be doing the role play right in the middle. But before we do that, there is a pre-workshop slides that we will go through, just preparing for the workshop. And then after the workshop, there is a bit of a debrief and an opportunity to ask questions as well. What I'm going to do today is use one of the techniques from the world of organizational relationship and system coaching, or commonly known as OSC. But what I would like the participants, the attendees of the workshop, to get out of today is to be able to take that workshop or take that activity, and with the very, very little or very high level introduction that I'm going to give you about OSC today, be able to take that activity to your workplaces, to your organization, and even in your personal life, and try these out and see how this works for you. So the intent is adding a tool in your toolkit. Definitely in this limited amount of time, the intent is not to go through the all the principles or all the foundations of the organization relationship system thinking. That would certainly not be possible. But just try it out. I was also thinking about when I was excuse me, trying to formulate the workshop, and I was thinking, should I actually just talk about this concept about this edge theory and this crossing the edge as an activity, or should we actually do an activity with the participants? And I ended up deciding to do the activity itself. What it means is that, yes, in the pre-workshop section, I will talk about what we are going to do. But once we go in the workshop section of the session today, I would need a few volunteers. We will put our acting hats on. We'll do a bit of a role play, and we will imitate a situation that's as if I am the coach of an organization, you are the people in that organization, and we are doing this together, and we'll see how it pans out, what we learn. We'll also see who gets the Oscar at the end on their acting skills as well, perhaps. Yeah, but that's the idea, that you experience the activity yourself, so you learn by doing it, not by me kind of walking you through it or showing you or explaining it to you. That's the intent of the workshop today. While we are in the workshop, maybe explaining what Derek was saying in a bit more detail. While we are in the workshop, let's say there are 10 out of the I don't know, 30 or 40 odd people that we've got on the call. Let's say 10 people say, yes, I put my hand up to be the volunteer and I'll participate actively and whatnot. When those people want to ask a question, you are all in the simulation. So just ask the question in the chat, or unmute yourself and say the thing. This is as if we are doing this thing together. When other people have questions, the people who are the observers, you can put a question in the chat, and what we will do is we will wait for the simulation for the workshop to end. And in the post-workshop section where there is a Q&A and a debrief, we will take your question there, so that, this kind of balances that we're not putting everyone on the spot that, everybody has to participate in the simulation. No, that's not the case. If you want to participate, that's fine. If you do not want to participate, that's fine as well. Just observe, you will learn from it as well. And at the end, regardless if you're an observer or if you participated in the workshop, you will be able to ask a question. How can I use it at my workplace? Hey, Nafis, how about this? Why did you not do A? Why did you do B? All those sort of things we will look at in the post-workshop. So without going into, wasting time into, introduction and whatnot, I've been in Sydney for 7-8 years, been heavily involved in the community. I work for Elaborate as a consultant. What it means is that I go to the organization, I go to a lot of organizations and learn a lot about their context and whatnot. I think you can perhaps find me on LinkedIn or Twitter if you want to. My handle is linked on LinkedIn, MNS Bhatt, or on Twitter also MNS Bhatt. We probably do not need to spend more time on that. The activity that we are going today is about change, and it is about a situation where people are resisting change. And what happens is organizations that are working fine, or the teams that are working fine, are supposed to be in some sort of equilibrium. Everything is running fine, everything is okay, and then a change is introduced into the system. In the description of the event, we talked about the security breaches that we've heard about. Optus, Medibank, two names that come to our mind, recent ones. And what happens is when an event like this happens, organizations react, and then they introduced either a new guideline, or they say, hey, we are cutting the budget on all the projects of this type, or we are not. So there is a change that is introduced in the system, and when that happens, what happens is that we disturb the equilibrium of the system, and metaphorically speaking, it throws the people off the edge. And for that equilibrium state to be created again, what we need to do is we need to make sure that people who are sitting on the edge, we need to help them cross the edge and cross the boundary. And that's what the context of this workshop today is. Like all activities, all activities are useful in a certain context. This set of activities that we are talking about is useful if we were to do this where a change is introduced in the system and people are resisting the change, or they're not sure about it, or there are people on both sides of the fence, and you as a coach want to make sure that you want to help them grow, and you want to help them create alignment in that situation. Talking a little bit about organizational relationship system coaching, it's a very unfair introduction to the body of knowledge. OSC is based on adult psychological development, family system therapy, change therapy. The concepts of system thinking are also incorporated in that. The process work is also included. So without going into too much detail of that, I think what we need to remember for today's workshop are these few things which are on our screen right now. So the first one here is that the relationship system is the focus. A lot of us have been in coaching gigs where we are coaching a team or an individual, and even when we are coaching in a team as a whole, oftentimes what we are looking at is providing one-on coaching to individuals. If you look at the ICF kind of definition, you're also talking about your coachee and the relationship that you establish and all of that. It sounds and looks very individual centric, whereas what we are saying here in the relationship system model is that your focus is not the individual that you're working with, but it is the relationship between the system. So the kind of the intangible, the unseen, the unseeable relationship that exists between the people. How many times you walk into a room of a team and you see that, ooh, there is a feeling of cold here in this room, not because of the weather, but because how the people are operating. You walk into another different room, and there is a hum in the room, and you see, oh, there is a warmth in room, people are chatting, they are a bit chatty, and there are high fives in the room. So you get that vibe. So this is what I mean by, when you're coaching the relationship, you're not coaching necessarily the individuals, you're coaching the relationship. The relationship is your focus. The other principle is that, uh, as a coach of a relationship system, you believe, and you work on the system, and you believe that it is naturally intelligent and creative, so that you don't have to push it towards a solution. As a coach, you trust on the ability of the system, that it would evolve itself into the next stage, which is an intelligent state, and which would help it solve the problem itself. So you don't have to nudge as a coach. And when you're working with the system, you work with all of the system, not the components of the system. Oh, and I have this one repeated. I'm not sure why that is the case. The important principle at the end, which we will use very, very heavily in today's workshop, is the concept that everyone is right, but only partially. You probably would hear me say that in the workshop as well. Talking specifically about the actual technique that we are using today is edge theory. The edge theory, the idea of the edge theory is to use physical space to kind of understand where we are right now and where we want to be. So if you were to look at this top of the triangle as the edge, to the left of edge is where the primary is. This is where our original stance is. This is who we identify ourselves as. So for example, hey, I'm a developer, and I am an introvert. So for example, it's a very cliched statement, but some people say, hey, this is who I am, this is how I identify myself, this is my familiar territory, this is where I'm very comfortable, and I am known to be this. People identify me as that, and I identify myself as that. Whereas if you look at the right hand side of the edge, this is what we call secondary in edge theory. And by secondary, what we mean by that is that this is who you are not. So for example, this is what you do not identify as yourself as, or this is where you find yourself uncomfortable. It's not that you can't do it. It's not that if you're an introvert, you can't speak up, or you can't write, or you can't do public speaking. You can do that, but you don't identify yourself. This is maybe a secondary identity somewhere, which is hidden underneath your primary identity. And maybe this is something that people do not identify you as. And the idea of using these two concepts of primary and secondary is that whenever a change is introduced in a team, it throws people back to the primary, and everybody is on the left of the edge. And getting over the edge to the secondary is only possible when the entire system moves over the edge. And you would see how the actions of people, the way they say things, how it would help them or prevent them from moving or crossing the edge. This is a bit of an activity that we will do today. Now, continuing with that, the working agreement, we probably wouldn't create a longer version of the working agreement, but what I would expect the people, especially the ones who are participating in the simulation as volunteers, that let curiosity be your teacher. When you're playing the role play, let's say if you're playing the head of the UX, right, you have a point of view as a head of UX in the role play, but be curious about what does the head of operations have to say. Be curious what does head of development has to say, and be respectful of others' opinion. Doesn't mean that you should curb your opinion, or you should not share your opinion, but be respectful of what others have to share. Listen intently and see what they have to offer, and we'll make sure that we hear all side of the stories as well. Now, the scenario which we will share earlier in the session description on Meetup as well was that the development manager, after the recent data breaches in Australia, has announced a new security guideline for our web application that we are doing. Now, the development team, which has members, the members can come with any skills. The skills are not really important for the simulation. Have been working together have been working together, but now they have been thrown off the edge a little bit, and now there is resistance to change, there is uncertainty, people are not sure about it. So that's kind of scenario that we are looking at. What we're looking for is a person who is, I'll not spend too much time here. We're looking for a dev manager, an operations manager, a head of UX to play in the participation, for just for sake of, maybe throwing something in, we will use the head of finance as well. And there would be other team members who would, who we would need as volunteers. Now, I have a checklist that we kind of want to go through before we actually jump into the actual workshop. So the expectation from the volunteers in the session, as I was saying earlier, is that I would like to have the video on so that I can share. I can see your faces, so I can see the expression on your face. So, for example, I can look at Samir right now. Samir, thank you very much. And what we would like is, how if you have attended some of the sessions earlier using the fishbowl technique, that people who are in the fishbowl, we would like to have their cameras on, so we'll use a similar technique. The people who are in the simulation, if they can keep their cameras on, it would mean they would be in the spotlight in the center, and everybody else would not be in the center, so everyone can see each other as well. So that is my expectation. And another expectation is that if you are volunteering for the session, I would like you to embody the role of the person that you are playing. So, for example, if you are a development manager, if your day job is being a coach or a scrum master, I would like you to take off the scrum master hat off, and I would like you to wear the development manager. Think about the development manager that you've worked with, either a nasty one or a really amazing one, and try to act like that person, however he or she has behaved, and behave like them, say things like them, right? Being a loving dev manager, a caring, somebody who cares about your professional development, or somebody who's like has a go at you. You decide how you want to you show up as the development manager. But what I would like you to do is not be the person that you usually are on your day job, but really take act in the role of the person. And of course, when you have to say something, share your opinion as that person. We talked about the working agreement. Let curiosity be your teacher. Make sure you respect others' opinion. These are pretty much the expectations from volunteer. What I'll do is, before we open the forum to people to see who is volunteering or not, are there any questions on the expectations from the volunteers? Sounds like a no. All right, so here we are. So we need at least 7 volunteers. If there are additional people who want to volunteer and be part of the workshop, that is also okay. But it would be great to have 7 volunteers. So the first one up we need is head of operations. Who wants to be a head of operations today? Move the screen. Anyone? It's usually just the first volunteer. We have the first volunteer, and then everybody's like, I want to be the second person.
I can be dev manager.
Yeah, okay. So Samir, you need to remember that you're the dev manager. I'll not remember that after the couple of these one. So you're okay that you're the dev manager? Or Derek, maybe we can have that written down. Samir is the dev manager.
Yeah, I'll write it down in the chat.
Thank you very much. What we also need is an operations manager. Who wants to be the operations manager? Tough crowd, eh?
I'll do operations then.
And yeah, you're Michael. Okay, and the next one is let's look at the next one. Next one is I'm gonna go with UX first. Who wants to be the head of UX?
I can do that if you like.
Yeah, I would love that, Paul. Thank you. And it does look like we have, so let's go with team member A first. Who wants to be the team member who's actually developing the web application? Who wants to be the first member of that team? So if you are a member of the team, what you would need to think and feel and act like as if the managers have made the decision and they've given a bit of a security guideline that, hey, we heard about this data breach in Optus and Medibank and whatnot. So these are the new things that you need to do as part of your daily work now. So who wants to be that person in that situation? Anyone?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Was that Sammy?
Yeah.
Okay. Look, we've got 4 volunteers. I initially said that we would probably start with at least 7, but I am happy to start with 5. So if we have one more person at least who wants to play the role of the other team member, then I think would be a happy bunch and can go ahead with the simulation. So one more person, come on, you can do it. How about we start with 4 people and let's see how it goes. Rowan and Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, no, all good. Just a playback as well for reference, Nafis.
Mhm.
We've got Samir as our dev manager, Michael as our operations manager, Paul as head of UX, and Sammy as team member A.
Okay, that's okay. That is okay. Now, what I would do is, I think the link to the board is being shared already in the chat. Derek, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So what I'll do is, once we go into the workshop mode, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and instead I will have the participants just look at the board and do that, and look at log into the Miro board. And the benefit of this is that I will be able to look at all of you and all of the faces, as well as looking at the screen at the same time. If you have a dual screen setup and if you want to have both at the same time, that's fine as well. Yes, Sammy.
Yeah, I just want to confirm as member A, am I the developer who's coding and putting security changes in, or am I a user who's going to sort of see it? I think it's the former, but just wanted to confirm.
Yes, the former.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So let me just bring everyone to me here on the board so that make sure everyone is okay. So do you see that? Now what we are going to do is, because we do not have the head of finance, so maybe let's get rid of that. We do not have the member B, that's okay. We do not have member C, that is also fine. And this was an extra one I heard. I was thinking maybe somebody else would be interested. Now Samir, you are the dev manager. So this icon here, head of development, is yours. So I'm just gonna give it to you, and yeah, this is yours. Now think of it that you are physically standing here and you're gonna move this icon back and forth as you see fit. And I'll explain that a little bit more, but this icon is yours. And head of UX was Paul. And Paul, this one is yours here. Take it, buddy, and move it around as part of the activity. And then definitely head of operations is Michael. So Michael, yours one is for some reason it looks like you're on a call with a call center. That's what others, I guess, the closest icon to the head of operations I got. So sorry about that, but yeah, this is your icon. And Sammy, yours one is this team member at the bottom here, this one here. So has all my volunteers, all 4 of you, got your icons? Yeah. What I would request is that all 4 of you to keep your video on, and if I could request the others to turn off your video, so that it's only the 4 people plus me as the facilitator of the workshop, as the coach in the session, or 5 of us are the only ones who have our video on, and everybody else, if you could please turn your videos off, that would be lovely. Okay, so just a quick recap. So we have 4 volunteers here, and I am the coach here. I'm here. I'm not gonna change the position. Now, as part of the activity, as soon as we say, yep, put the acting hats on and go, let's start the acting. What we will do is I'll start as a coach and I'll say, welcome, yada, 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 and we'll go from there. But as participants, when in the room, you think that the change that we talked about is the new security guidelines that have been introduced, and there is uneasiness, there is resistance, and there is confusion about what those changes mean. And not everybody is onboarded with that change. Of course, the person who has introduced the change is doing the rah rah rah, and they're rallying their troops and they want the change to happen. But the other participants in the system, the other 3 members, are not necessarily have bought the idea. So if you have not bought the idea, what you're doing is you are staying in the primary. You are staying on the left-hand side of the edge. And when somebody says something, either something that is convincing, you start to go closer to the edge, and then something said or shared or a promise made, then it helps you really cross the edge. And sometimes you cross the edge and you come back and you go a bit back and forth, and that happens. But what I would like you to do, all the participants, is to move the icon as and when that happened during the conversation. Any question on that? No? Okay. Now let's start the simulation. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much. All the volunteers are guys today. That's a bit of a problem. We should have had a different representation from perhaps the other from some women as well. But welcome to the workshop today, and thank you for inviting me to run this workshop, which is coaching people when they're in resisting the change. Now I understand that our organization hasn't had a data breach yet, but we are affected by the recent news of Optus and Medibank. And Samir, I understand, as the development manager, you have introduced a new set of security guidelines that our web team need to implement. We have also Michael in the room. Michael, you're the operations manager, and I understand from the briefing before the workshop that you are concerned about what these changes would mean for your team from an operational point of view. Paul, you have similar concerns, but from a UX point of view. And Sammy, you are the team member who's to actually implement this change. And you have some questions, and we're not sure about how this is going to pan out. So I welcome you all to this workshop. Thank you very much. Can I throw it to you, Samir, as a dev manager? When you were thinking of introducing these changes, these new additional security guidelines, what is your point of view? Do you want to share with the rest of the team?
All right. So as we've seen from recent
data breaches. Cybersecurity is on increase. In the last 3 years, it was over 300% increase in cyber attacks, and it's not going to drop off. Now, considering that major companies have been attacked and many others that are not admitting they've been attacked, it was suggested, and it would be a good path for us to implement some changes that would add additional cybersecurity to us. Reason for it. So first, it wouldn't impact anybody's work. There is no musical chairs, nobody would be losing any jobs or anything like that. We would just have to add extra layer of security, add some processes, implement right programming, and make our customers trust us with their data. So we need to be responsible to keep them safe. So for all of us, we don't have a plan B, and we hope we never get to the plan B where we have to go on the news and explain why we leaked the data, why we didn't implement security measures, why we haven't preempted what could have been easily avoided. So that is the reason why we want to implement this change. Now, I'm sure there is a lot of concerns by everybody. Oh, it's another form to fill up. And I can guarantee you it's much easier to fill up extra form now than fill up the form and submit it to PR and try to salvage our reputation in a market.
Thank you very much for that, Michael. And I could hear that, you know, when you were saying you use the word they use the word that showed caution and an act of prevention, that you do not want to be in the situation. So I hear you, and I think I also noticed Sammy as a team member nodding when you were saying a few things about not being in the news. So I think there is some appreciation of what you are saying. I'm interested in hearing what the other team members have to say, listening to Samir explaining the intent and the reason behind what he has just done. What do the other team members have to share? What is coming up for you here?
I think from the UX head, I think security, you're right. It's a really important area, and we need to be on top of that as a company. I guess my concern is, one, we only have limited number of resources. We're already 100% onto the XYZ project, and we need to make a call. Is this going to be a higher priority than the XYZ project? Because if it's not, or if product decide it's not more important, then we're not going to be able to put our resources, UX resources, into the security project for another 2 months. So I think it would be important to make that call so we can prioritize our backlog accordingly and then start working on it. So that's one concern I have about the resourcing of it and the timeline. Also I'm a bit concerned about hindering our users of our system. So I think we'd have to really sort of nut out in terms of design what the best flow is going to be for our users, so we don't be pushing paywalls or registration walls onto them constantly, so they do have a very sort of streamlined experience, UI experience. So they're my main concerns.
Thank you, Paul. And Michael and Sammy, what are your thoughts?
Sorry,
Go on.
Michael. I was just going to quickly ask if there's a deadline on this, because as Paul said, we've got Project XYZ that's in flow at the moment, and we've got our whole team on that.
You want me to respond, Buff? Cole?
Yeah, if you could, because
Yeah.
I wonder, is this something that is short term, or is this something for next year? Because all the code my team's put out, I don't think it's ever been breached, so I don't think there's a question on trust.
Okay, I fully understand your point of view. So, and excellent questions from both of you. So this is more of the strategic move, not tactical move. Maybe we will have a short-term pain, but it's a long-term gain.
But
So what
that
it
sounds
means
good.
for our customers, if we are transparent in communication to our customers in what we're doing is for their benefit and for their protection, I'm sure they're more than happy to be on board with that. Properly, currently, we don't have our login procedure is, as you said, it's very streamlined. It's working correct. But if you notice that everybody else moved on to two-way verification, use email, use mobile with the PIN codes, use the authenticator. So we have to move forward with the technology. We have to move, because if we don't move, cyber hackers do move. And they not just move in line, they are ahead of it, because for everything new that comes out, they find a way to go around it. So we need to be on top of it. In a timeline question, so we're looking to implement it in the next 6 months. And priority would have to be made in regards to the current XYZ project.
Now, Michael, I understand that you also wanted to share something, but I'll just kind of play back what I'm hearing is that by what Samir is adding in terms of description of why we need to do that, the confidence in the room is not going towards the edge and not helping the team cross the edge. It's actually helping the team go actually a step or two back in the opposite direction. So I would just kind of play that back, and maybe I'll start with you, Michael. What is it that's something that is kind of helping you or preventing you from go towards the edge? Because as we can see, these descriptions that we have just been offered in the last few minutes aren't helping us get there. So tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all pro for change, but I'm kind of disappointed in this change. You say it's strategic, but it feels tactical. I feel there's changes need to be done in this organization, and I think really this feels like an opportunity for actually looking at our organization, looking at the structure, and the way we're doing things. I mean, it's really painful in operations right now in terms of the way we're having to work with the customer and the feedback from the customer. And I feel it's just an opportunity. If we are going to look at how we're working, a real opportunity to really understand us and our way forward in the future. So I like the idea of the change, but I think it's not going far enough, and it doesn't feel strategic to me. It feels tactical.
So if you, what do you think it should happen that to be strategic? Are you saying that it's tactical because of the short timeline, very aggressive timeline, or because you're concerned about your team and how customers will hammer the call center? What do you need?
Well, you said there'll be no change to the organization, no change to the team. So in terms of actually us changing to respond to this obviously potential challenge, it's more about here's a quick technical fix. Now that quick technical fix is going to bring a lot of questions up and a lot of, as you say, more work for us and operations dealing with our customers asking, so what's this change? How does this change work? So it's a case of, for me, it's seizing the opportunity to say, okay, we're looking at this change, and maybe there's an opportunity for having a conversation with everyone and the technical part. I really understand if there's any other things we can do to improve the way we work going forward, to allow us to be able to align to a proper response to the security threat.
And if I could also ask the other two participants, Sammy and Paul, from a UX point of view and from a team member point of view, how would you answer the question that Samir just asked? What needs to change for this to become a bit more strategic than currently what it sounds like to be a tactical one?
Go,
I'd
Paul.
I'd have to say, I think it's great to be approaching this as cybersecurity, but I don't just want to do some sort of knee-jerk reaction. I do want it, us to put our heads together and come up with a good plan. And to do that, I think it would be quite worthwhile to come up with an MVPs, because if we can address 80% of the concerns that we have, so then, and if that's the low-hanging fruit, then maybe, we could have a phased approach. So low-hanging fruit, MVP, we could probably devote 3 weeks of our team towards that and still proceed with project XYZ and have that finished within 6 months. So I think taking the phased approach will probably give us, what we want. And then we can, look at that other 20%, maybe once we're live and we see how the MVP is working out there, and we'll have a better idea of, moving forward from that point, what are the other areas that we, need to concentrate on for cyber security.
And just to play back, and Sammy would love to hear your thoughts as well, but just to play back what we are hearing. So the moment Paul shared the word knee-jerk reaction, I saw a few nods. Right, so it kind of looks like the sentiment in the room. And when you talked about creating a plan, I saw a few more nods. Even the development manager who's announced the change, he was nodding as well. So kind of an agreement that that's the path that we need to go towards. And I can also already see that there is some movement happening by just the description that you're providing, Paul. So it does look like we are on the right path there of what you're describing, Paul. But to make sure that we have all the opinions in the system, Sammy, what are your thoughts on that, buddy?
Yeah, so when Samir said about it being a strategy, that's certainly something we want to hear, something well planned and thought out. But then he mentioned short-term pain. And all I can think of is that we're going to have to do this project in parallel, and so probably working extra hours. But then when Paul mentioned an MVP, just to sort of test it out and see what we're doing and go for that low-hanging fruit, then again that sort of reduces the workload, because for us this is all new. We're going to have to put in a new pipeline for the testing as well as the coding as well, learn sort of new interface for coding on, and yeah, we really need some extra resources, I think, if we're going to put this in place, and maybe extra security skills.
I think that all your points are absolutely taken on board, and apologies, I did not mention that, yes, we are not planning to do big bang, and we definitely want to fail fast and learn and move forward. So it's an evolutionary approach. We're not saying drop the XYZ. We just want to say that everybody's heard, and we do want to do it on a quick and efficient way. Not a big bang, evolutionary MVP, pick the low-hanging fruit or fruit off the ground, little processes, lean thinking implemented, and that would get us there.
That sounds good. Can I just add, I've heard some really good stories about Security Are Us, and they're a consultancy firm, and I've heard that they've gone into a number of organizations and sort of sort of done reviews and assessments of where the company's at, where the site's at, and then come up with a list of recommendations. And I think as a starting point, before we commit a whole bunch of resourcing to this project, that maybe it would be worth getting them in for a week or two, just to sort of nut out where our, our weakest areas are. And then at least we can formulate a list, and then maybe they can help us to come up with what we should be targeting for an MVP. And once we have that, we'll have a much better idea of where we currently are, and how much resourcing we'll need to get to that MVP.
Absolutely. This is just a starting point and announcement. We don't know what we don't know. So we do definitely engaging with the external parties that will assess our IT front end facing external and internal users, because think that as much as the cyber attacks come from externally, they come internally as well. And we do have to do revision of access management and few other things. So yes, definitely this will be assessed and prioritized based on the report, and then we're gonna do the prioritization, low-hanging fruit, the quick wins, and any ideas. I don't know everything, but the cybersecurity we definitely need to improve, and everything. Each of your ideas is excellent ideas, and they help us get there, because each of you has a specific pain that needs to be addressed. For operations, was saying that customers might be not trained and not happy because of all the feedback. For that, we can use transparency. We can do communication to customers and talk to them. Because when you have a cybersecurity attack, transparency is the best defense for the customer, not hiding information. So same as when we starting with this project, we can let them know we are looking after you, and then we're going to be implementing slowly some changes to improve your security. So we want to be we want to bring everybody on a journey, not a big bang.
Can I make another suggestion? Yeah. So if we don't want the big bang, and as you say, we're really full on moving forward with security, it would probably make sense if we can maybe contact Apex Training, and maybe we can start kick off and organize some training sessions for the UX guys, for our developers.
Yes.
In that security area, and where the 10 ways of hacking, and ways that we can counteract that, because I think that might take a bit of time. So if we can start getting our own company on board with what we're trying to do, and start training people up in security, then I think it's going to make that process a lot easier for people to, and a lot more palatable for people to take on when it comes time to actually start developing and start that change process.
Absolutely. I'm very keen on a training, and not just for the people that actually will be doing coding, for all the management to really understand what is happening out there in the risk, that each of the cyber attacks comes to knocking on your door. So absolutely, yeah.
What I'm saying is that there is a lot of transparency in how information is getting shared, and acknowledgement of the pains on either side. Not necessarily everybody is crossing the edge, or is on one side or the other side of the edge, and that is okay. And I would like you to stay where you are with the feelings where you are. I guess we would. This was our first discussion where we started talking about this change. We have some more workshops scheduled in subsequent days as well. But before we end the simulation, and before we end the workshop today here, we have change the status quo. We are in a different understanding. We are in a different perception where, as opposed to where we were at the start of this workshop 20, 25, 30 minutes ago. Now, what I would like you to do is maybe as a concluding remark, what is the one next thing that you would like to do for us as a group to be able to cross the edge? Excuse me, to cross the edge. What would be one thing that you would like to do? Who wants to go first?
I will. I'd like to see a list of actions that we're going to take. I've heard lots of words where I think we're all on the same page. And the dev manager, it kind of, I can hear agreement from you. So I guess what I would like to see is an action plan of how to move forward with this. We've discussed a number of actions, but I'd actually like to see those documented, and I'd like to see names against them. So that would help me to tip me over the edge, because then I can see we're actually addressing the items that we've mentioned and we've discussed. Yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want.
Thank you. Thanks, thanks, Paul. Who wants to go next?
I'll jump in. So I'm quite pleased that we're thinking about getting some people in to do some training, maybe even some people in to do an assessment of the level of security we have at the moment. That kind of tells me that we're not going to drop everything and completely refocus on this. My sticking point at the moment is still on that comment of short-term pain, because I'm still concerned that my team's going to be working on 2 full-time projects straight away. So I'd need some more sort of clarity around what that means, because 16-hour days doesn't sound too good to me.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
And for me, it feels like another meeting where dev is the focus and operation is like not even recognized as a thing, in terms of we're the ones who are going to have to own in this. We're going to have to be doing the work, supporting our customers when this has been developed, whatever it is developed. But at no point were operations brought in to the part of the project or actually having any training. It was development training, UX training, and management training. At no point was operations even registered in this conversation, which is just sad.
Which is also the point where kind of I noticed that, you know, Michael, I saw you move further away. I think you were kind of warming up to the edge, but then I saw that. So I think there is the understanding that, you know, this needs to be across the board and not just with a selected subset of the group of people. Yeah. Michael,
I kind of think, you know, it's up to us to make the demands. You know, if the dev manager has said this is what he wants, it's up to us as the other heads to say, actually, I'll be on board with this if you can do X, Y, Z. You can give me the training, you can give me some resources, you can give me some consultants. You know, if you don't ask, then maybe he's not going to know what he doesn't know. So if you need training in operations, maybe that's, you know, the time to say, look, I might be on board with this if you can give me this and this and this.
Yeah, but Paul, I thought we were a team.
Yeah, look, but I'm not the head of operations, so I don't know your area as well as I know my own area. So I'm not entirely sure what your area needs. So if you do have concerns for certain, you know,
well, yeah, but I think operations need security training more than UX needs security training.
Okay, that's fine. Let's add that to our action list. So I think that's why we're all here. And you know, the head of development is coming up with that action list. So let's add that to the, you know, to the list of actions that we'll organize training for that.
I understand you're ahead of the UX, but, you know, less me and more us would be really helpful.
So what I'll do is we'll take these 3 into the consideration, and we will reconvene tomorrow in a similar activity, and we probably go from there. And to be honest, I'm doing this more for the sake of, you know, finishing it in terms of, you know, keeping the time. As you can see that, you know, when it just looked like, so I'm just going to take the acting hat, the simulation hat off, right, and just come back to, you know, the meetup here. So what we just experienced was, oh, it looked like it's getting there, and oh, the operations man just said something which kind of throws a spanner in the works again, and you're just like, whoa, what just happened there? Is like, oh, now we are talking about, oh, I'm the manager, you're the manager, or you know, I'm being deaf. So there is sometimes when you run an activity like this, you don't know how long it would take, but you know, you can't have an indefinite amount of time of workshop with the people we required. So as a coach, a few things that you need to be very careful about is A, do not attach yourself to an outcome or to a particular person or a group in among the participants. So for example, if I started favoring Michael, for example, so Michael, it felt like he is feeling left out, right? But if I start kind of agreeing with him, there is a difference between sharing what I'm hearing he is saying and the effect it is having on everybody else, and the emotion in his voice. I can do that without being judgmental. But when I offer agreement that I agree with what Michael is saying, and yes, this is A, B, and C, then I kind of become I'm become a party to it. And then I'm not a neutral facilitator, then I'm not a coach, then I'm becoming a party of the system. So as a coach, what you need to be very, very careful about when you run an activity like this is that you'll always not have enough time, but you will have to define a time boundary somewhere, and you would need to take the discussion forward. What you do have right now as a result of this is an icebreaker, really. You've broken the ice, you have started the discussion, you see that couple of people excuse me, are enthusiastic. You can see that, you know, there is resentment about, you know, leaving the operations behind, or you know, maybe the UX was not so important in terms of the security, but UX is still getting the same significance, you know, not having a tangible list of action items. So you can, towards the end of an activity like this, when you were to do something, what you could do is you could take those three things that I asked. I think Paul said action items. Sammy, you said clarity, that, you know, what would it mean in terms of workload and prioritization? And Michael, you said that, you know, hey, what about operations? You know, I didn't hear anything about operations. It looks like we are second-class citizens, right? So you can formulate this into action items for the group to take, or maybe for the development manager to take. If you were running this simulation with a smaller group, like 5-6 people, if you're doing this with a bigger group, like a 30 people group, you can do some activity like this with the 30 people group as well. Then you can say, who wants to be on point for item number 1? And there's a couple of people say, oh, we will work with dev manager and we'll make sure that there is a list of action items. Oh, the person C and D would make sure that, you know, there is sense of prioritization happening, so there is no people not working 16 hours. So, you know, you can create a smaller worker groups from this activity. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because then this activity doesn't become like a happy-go-lucky kind of an activity where we all come together, you know, we talk about feelings and, you know, what we are doing, we use a fancy technique, and at the end of the day, nothing changes. You know, we go back to our desks, we keep doing the same thing, and there is no change. So making sure then there is some follow-up, or there is some action, and action not from a coach, that his coach says, hey, you need to do this, but coach asks them, what actions would you like to take? And, you know, the people say, oh, I volunteer to do this, oh, I want to do this. And then you say, okay, when do you want to do this by? And say, oh, we are meeting next time again in a fortnight's time, so we will do it by the next fortnight. And I said, sure, are you committing to do that? Yes, you're committing to that. I said, yeah, okay, good workshop, everyone, thank you very much for your time. And then you kind of finish the session. So this is how an activity would like this would look like. It can get really hairy at times as well, and I think as a coach, you probably should be ready for that as well. It was going to get hairy when I stopped you guys there, but yeah, that was fun. What we've effectively done is we've ran a 30-ish minute activity. I'll stop sharing the screen and I'll see what everybody else is. If the rest of the folks, if you want to turn your and apologize for my cough. If you want to turn your cameras back on, what we will do right now is what you've seen in practice is a few things. I, as an individual, as a coach, wasn't coaching one of the 4 people. I was coaching what was happening between them. I was looking at, oh, somebody said something and there were nods, or there were thumbs up, or there was a gasp or something. You know, I was playing that back, and my intent was to move all of them four together as a system across the edge, helping them move across the edge. What I was doing as a coach is what you would do as a one-on-one coach as well, where you would play back, not take sides. There is a difference between being a coach and being a mentor. I wasn't being a mentor. I wasn't being a teacher. I was just being a coach of that group. And what else did we do? We used a technique from Edge that who you are as a primary and who do you want to be as a secondary, as a bit of a metaphor, and as a spatial guidance to kind of see where people are, how they are moving and how they are not moving. And if I'm honest, there was a lot more techniques that you would learn in a group coaching or an OSC class, that in a situation where there is a bit of a you don't see people are crossing the edge and there is tension. What are some of the techniques that you would need? Sometimes there is a technique called you would kick the people over the edge, or you would kiss the people over the edge, or you would prevent them from crossing the edge. And sometimes preventing them from people has the effect that people want to cross the edge, right? When you say, oh no, you're not allowed to do this, you kind of put a hypothetical situation that, let's say if we are not allowed to do this one, what would happen? And then you ask people through that, maybe you use some bit of visualization that what happens if we are not allowed to implement these security guidelines, what could go wrong? And let them visualize and use the dreaming a little bit here, and then kind of use that as a facilitation technique to kind of help them cross the edge well. So there is a lot that can be added to this one. As I was saying earlier, my intent is not to not even attempt to not even try to cover all of the OSC or even a major portion of it, just to give you a glimpse of a technique that comes from the OSC body of knowledge, where we are not coaching an individual, where we are coaching a group. This is a technique which will be useful when a change is introduced in the system and there is confusion / resistance / not knowing what to do, or different point of views of in the system. And you as a coach, you should be working with the entire group to help them all cross the group. Because if, let's say, if in this session, excuse me, if everybody crosses the group, crosses the edge, but Michael as head of operation does not, it is not a win-win. And having this visual thing, either you do it in person and you do it on a floor with maybe some painter's tape and whatnot, or if you do it on a mirror or a mural with icons, it allows you to, as a technique, to extract information from the system. People where they are on the edge gives you that information. And because you're running this technique like this, and because you have shown to ask them to move around the place themselves, you can see how the dev manager saying something has an impact on the person moving on the other side. So the dev manager realizes the impact of his or her words, the strength of his words. When Paul said something and it was an idea that kind of clicked with the other folks started moving. So you are kind of playing the system back to itself, which is one of the principles of the OSC as well, that the system itself is intelligent, it is creative. What you need to do is you need to play it back to the system. And through this technique, using the visualization, we're saying, hey, people are moving from this part of the edge to the corner, to that edge to that corner, and that is playing the system back to itself. So that is what I kind of demonstrated in the technique today. Obviously, in the time available, didn't go through all of the details, but I'll stop here. And what I'll do is I'll open the floor to everyone, either part of the simulation or not part of the simulation. What questions do you have?
I've got one.
Before we jump in, just a round of applause to the volunteers, Paul, Michael, Sami, and Samir. Well done, and thank you, Nafis, for facilitating that conversation.
Thank you. Nafis, I've got a question. Is it worth starting off with an objective? Like, this is the objective and what we want, what we're expecting from this workshop? Because I felt like we went in there and we're just sort of wishy-washy. I don't know, here's an idea. What do you guys reckon? And is it good to give like a clear sort of outcome that we're aiming for by the end of this session? or at this point in time, because it's the first workshop and we're not sure, we're just sort of treading the waters. Is that the sort of approach that we should take? I'm just not quite sure.
So what in the real world I would do is I would spend a lot of time in the working agreement, and I would spend, so I didn't do that a lot today. I perhaps spend maybe maximum 20 seconds. And the other thing that I would spend time on is understanding that what problem we are discussing. We did not spend a lot of time today on that either. However, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on what outcome we want. The problem here is there is a change in the system because the development manager, perhaps single-handedly, has announced that, you know, these are the security guidelines that we will be implemented. And everybody was like, what the, you know, what's happening? And how do we want to react to it? Or actually how we actually want to surface what the reaction to it is, because maybe we don't know what the reaction is. Maybe the reaction is that everybody is super happy with this, and, you know, in 3 minutes, you know, everybody crosses the edge, you know, everybody high fives and he says, yeah, done deal, let's go. Maybe that's the outcome. So don't go with an outcome in mind. The system is intelligent and is naturally creative. Whatever next stage that it mutates into is the right state for the system to go into. My job as a coach was to bring all the stakeholders, all the players of the system together and provide a forum where we can address the problem and call and, you know, name the elephant in the room, saying, hey, this change has been introduced, we are uncomfortable, we are resistant. So I wouldn't have an outcome in mind, but I would have definitely spend a bit more time saying, hey, this is the problem that we are trying to address and we are going to talk about it.
Cool, thank you.
I've got a observation and a question, and the first observation is, Samir, if you are a development manager, I do want to work with you. You're very, very agreeable. So well done. Side sort of note is that Michael, as the operations manager, was that by design that you were purposely not trying to move with the party, or what was that? You know, in that conversation that came up.
Not at all. The little piece sentence for me was pro change, and I was very pro change, and I wanted to change to happen. I thought there was an opportunity for more change, but at the same time, it was actually the way it was talked about. I suddenly realized, oh, wait a minute, where's operations? And I thought that then put me into that swing over to, in actual fact, I'm not part of this conversation. This operations manager is not actually part of this. They've been brought in because they have to bring them in. And I thought, well, that was, and it was just the way it was phrased and the way the shaping actually changed me over to that bit. So it wasn't, I didn't come in with that I didn't come in with that piece. It just came out based on those conversations.
Thank you.
And you know, the impact of somebody who is getting closer to the edge, and then somebody says something and that person backs off a couple of steps, is so significant that you cannot ignore the statement that the person making is making that person go take a couple of steps back. Everybody's like, ooh, what did he say? What did she say? You know? So it is very, I mean, just the physical, you know, the aspect of it, you know, the spatial aspect of it, and, you know, kind of making that visible. You know how you'd say, you know, you vote with your feet in open space, right? So this is pretty much the same concept. You kind of voting with your feet in towards pro or against that, and that's a remarkable intelligence from the system.
I was in that piece. I agreed with Paul's ideas and concepts. So it was that piece about, well, in actual fact, if maybe there's some other technique, which is getting agreement on what you agree on, and then understanding what you're not agreeing on and working through that piece. And maybe that would have pulled out the understanding that there's probably some history of that going on. So it wasn't what Paul was saying. It was like, yeah, I agree with Paul, absolutely. But it's just who's in that group are actually getting the opportunity.
Cool. What other questions? So Derek, are there any questions about the simulation, how to run this, or anything from anybody? Or if you have not put one in chat, you can perhaps unmute yourself and ask the question right now as well. while people are thinking about a question to ask, maybe I can throw a question. Where would you see using a technique like this at your workplace?
Could be maybe the start of, a project, just to get a feeler for how the other areas might be feeling about it or might view it. Like as an initial, just sort of touchy feeler to see where where they might be at. Just, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, maybe when there's not psychological safety on a subject, and using this technique might be able to sort of expose or bring to the surface what the different issues are.
Mm-hmm. Anything from the observers today? Would you see this? Actually, this is a good question to ask of the observers, because you were not experiencing what Sammy, Paul, Michael, and Sami were experiencing. What's your take on this activity? What did you observe, and also how would you see this being used if you were to kind of run something similar in your place?
So this is Ranjit. Sorry, I'm driving and I'm listening to you guys. So quite a good one. Thanks for that. I think this is quite a good technique we can use. Probably from my perspective, I would say, like, I'm in an area where the business and technology quite often lock horns, where business looks for unreasonable or work they would like to prioritize and get through technology, where technology fires back to say, like, hey, you have to also consider the capacity, right? So I think we can use these. We do use some of the prioritization techniques, but doesn't help much. But I think this technique, we can try to see, hey, how best we can get into a win-win situation where we hear from everyone and come up with as you say, a solution. Probably the system itself brings up a solution, right?
Thanks, Ranjit.
Just a couple of observations from what I saw is that what I do like is that it made it very clear in my mind the different points of views of the stakeholders. And what I really enjoyed was just observing on the edge diagram where people were moving their icon based on the conversation. So, sometimes in those situations, you're trying to guess about how people are feeling, and it's giving you more of that feedback loop to say if we're getting warmer or colder in that situation. And at the end of it, with with Michael being on the other side, it was very apparent. And I suppose on that end, as a facilitator, I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do about that, guys?
So one of my comments, thank you, Derek. I'm not agreeable. I'm just agreeable with the clever people and great ideas. That's all. You have to listen to input to everybody. But at the beginning, I was on a left side. Am I meant to move straight away to the other side because I'm the one who proposed the thing, or where should I be on that?
Wherever you think you are, if you have embodied the change, if you are happy with the change, if you are pro change, and if you are comfortable with all of it, then it's not a secondary anymore. And if you are in that, then you kind of move that. So usually it does happen, the person who is announcing the changes kind of goes to the other end rather quickly, rather in the early phase. But hey, the change is not always like that. The change is not always where one person announces the change and everybody else is kind of interpreting that change. Sometimes a change is bestowed upon all of you together, and we are all players in the system, and nobody is kind of brought that change to us. So in that situation, for example, there wouldn't be a one person going onto the other edge in the secondary right away. All people would kind of make some clusters and move together and back and forth. So I think you did the right thing. You stayed at the start there, and then you kind of formed a stance and you went there. I think you did okay.
Just a question.
Sorry, just a quick sort of check-in. We're passing our time box for the session. Are we okay to go a couple of minutes over with the last couple of questions?
Yeah, do we have maybe just one we can do just now? And yeah, maybe you can follow up.
So Ahmed,
Yeah.
floor is yours.
Just a quick question. I think well, this system is really good. Thanks for the talk. And then the thing is, someone coming from outside as a third party coaching without any intention to change anything, that works really well. But well, imagine in an organization or a small startup, or using this and being part of that relationship, like a CTO or someone who has some idea where things needs to be. It's hard to detach from the last part, which is the outcome. I think we talked about, okay, don't think about the outcome, but you are participating in that, and then you are looking for an outcome ultimately. How do you drive that if you have a role and you want to coach people to be able to move across the edge?
Separation of concerns, very difficult to do, easier said than done. And maybe I'll throw it to Rowan as well. But in my opinion, if you are part of the system, it is very difficult to coach the system itself from a real true coaching point of view. I'll give you an example. I attend a lot of training. I do coaching for a living. But if there is a situation between me and my wife, or if there is a situation between the siblings, like 4 or 5 of us, I cannot do nothing about it. And nothing against my wife, but even if it is with my siblings, I am a party to the system. I am an actor in the system. I cannot, even if I have the attitude or the separation in my mind to separate myself, my other brothers and sisters would not take me as a facilitator, as a neutral person. I am the party in the system. So no, I cannot play that role. So you need a person who is outside to play the pure coaching role. Now, can the managers, can the CTOs coach their teams? Yes, but there is a difference between that. Rowan, would you like to add something?
Oh, I was just going to say that sounds like a great point to close on. It's a reminder of the value of having a separate professional coach, with separation of roles between those who are really deeply invested in the system and the coach, I guess, isn't it? So that's a good thing to take away from this session. Yeah. Look, it's okay with all of you. I'd like to close it now, and thank you. Let's round of applause for Nafis. And yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing all that. And round of applause also for all of those actors, the Hollywood stars we had. I think it got a bit spicy towards the end there. I'm really glad we kind of got to that point. But yeah, and that was a really interesting exploration, I think, that way of doing it. So yeah, look, Merry Christmas, I guess. Happy New Year if I don't see you before then. If anyone would like to reach out about, well, any of the things I brought up at the start, like Scrum Australia, maybe running a session next year, anything you might offer around, venue or, a talking point for next year, I would love to hear from you. But otherwise, thanks, Derek. Let's not forget Derek's efforts. Thank you. And unless we do hear an objection, I guess we'll try to post this, I guess, on the YouTube channel. Please stay on the call if you wanted to chat about that. Otherwise, thank you.